Candidate Ron DeSantis. Governor, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure you've seen the president's address last night from the Oval Office. This is his second address from the Oval Office, essentially asking for more funding. Again, $14 billion, what we've heard, for Israel, $60 billion for Ukraine, and again, more for Taiwan and others. But the question for you is, if you were in office at that time, and if you were in the Oval Office, would you have done it the same? What did you make of the speech?
Oh, well, we would have done almost everything different starting in January of 2021. I think Biden has created a situation in the world through his fecklessness, his weakness, that has caused these problems to mount. I was struck with the speech. There was just a lack of overall strategic vision for what we're trying to do as Americans. He never mentioned China, which is the top global threat to the United States. You know, he wasn't discussing the threats that are now in our own country due to his open border policy. And then the way he was trying to act like Ukraine and Israel are similar, they're different problems, that require different approaches. So I think he missed the mark yet again. But ultimately, we need leadership. Biden's not providing the leadership. And, I also am very concerned about with the Israel, because he'll say that Israel has a right to defend itself, but then, he wants to send $100 million to the Gaza Strip. That money will be commandeered by Hamas terrorists. We know they run the show down there. So why would you want to be funding both sides of the conflict? He needs to let Israel do the job, let him annihilate Hamas, and that's got to be the first order of business. I don't think you can play both sides of this. It just isn't going to work.
He also mentioned the efforts to bring home American hostages taken by Hamas. We've got some of that sound. We'll play it and get your thoughts.
By Hamas. We're pursuing every avenue to bring their loved ones home. As president, there is no higher priority for me than the safety of Americans held hostage.
In your assessment, sir, is the Biden administration handling the situation properly?
Well, we know that they outed some of our special operators by publishing pictures of them on Instagram. Those would likely be the type of operators who would be involved in hostage rescue efforts. And so that's totally blown their ability potentially to use those operators. Hundreds of thousands of people saw that. So that was very reckless for them to do it. I don't know if they just thought the photo op was worth it, but that's not the way you roll, especially with sensitive operations like that. So look, it's hard to know what they're doing behind the scenes, because if they were smart, this would not be anything they'd be publicizing. But there are Americans held hostage. That is an absolute responsibility of the President of the United States. And it's yet another reason why we shouldn't be sending any money that Hamas can get. While they're holding our own people hostage, that should be number one priority. Return the hostages or you'll have hell to pay.
Sir, do you have, again, looking at what's happening here in Israel, do you have concern for where this could lead, what's happening in Ukraine, the potential there in China, again, in Israel, and then at a time where the House of Representatives can't find their own leadership? Does that bother you?
Well, look, I think that China is really benefiting by what's going on in the world, because I think Biden is not fixated on China. In fact, he doesn't even view China as a serious threat. He thinks that this is kind of a friendly competition. That is not the case. We know we have inadequate hard power in the Indo-Pacific to deny China's ambitions in that region. And, here's the thing. There's a lot of issues in the world that we've got to deal with. Terrorism is still a fact. We didn't talk about it as much as maybe we did 10, 15 years ago, but Israel shows that. You have the instability in Europe. You have problems in our own hemisphere. But the only real global threat that is a peer competitor to ours is China. And I think Biden's really helped China continue to move forward and challenge us. Now, in terms of the speaker race, look, I don't think when you're a gang that shoots straight, that's just not good. It doesn't inspire confidence. You see these guys running around like chickens with their head cut off. I think they need to elect a speaker today. I would vote for Jim Jordan. I think he'd do a good job. He's a good conservative. But they got to get this done. And so much of what they're doing in D.C. is theatrics, but it's not leading to any results. And in Florida, we do the opposite. We don't do the theatrics. We don't do political empty calories. We just deliver results. I mean, we've delivered results on all these issues. In fact, I was the one bringing back people from Israel when Biden was not scrambling resources. There were people stranded there, Americans, Floridians. I did an executive order last week. We scrambled our assets, and we've brought back hundreds of Americans, mostly Floridians, who were stranded in the war zone. So that's what you got to do. You got to step up and lead. And we know, look at the problems. The border is wide open, inflation, energy, all these things that they need to be addressing. So get your cards in order and start getting the job done, because we have a lack of leadership in this country. We show it in Florida. That's why our state's doing so well. But we need to see it in Washington.
We were showing that video. Again, when you've got people who are in a war-torn zone arriving back on American soil, no feeling could
Free of charge, by the
could
way.
be greater. Talk about a very impressive moment there.
I talked to one of the interesting thing about that first flight, 271 Americans, 91 children. So there were families with very young children, and one of the mothers told me her 6-year-old daughter was just telling her, "Mommy, I don't want to hear these rockets. I want to get away from the rockets. I want to get back to Florida." So we were able to make that happen, and that's what leadership's all about, delivering for people.
Well, it's great to hear. Great to hear for those families. Got to ask you about some words that we've heard from the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, weighing in on the war in Israel. Let's play this sound. We'll get your thoughts.
Will you visit Israel? Will you visit Israel, Mr. President?
I may go. I haven't thought of it, but I believe in letting them do what they have to do. They have to straighten it out. What's happened in Israel is all of those people dead would have never happened, ever. Not even a chance. Even the Democrats admit that if I were president.
What do you make, sir, of that assessment that this wouldn't have happened if Donald Trump was president?
Well, look, those are counterfactuals. I mean, I think that Israel's got some of the strongest border security in the world. There's going to be a lot that's going to be done to see how did it end up happening, because I think it was a surprise to see an attack of that magnitude be able to happen. But I think it's probably more internal to them. I would say this, I've been requested to kind of go over there. I know Biden went. I'm not going to go over there at this time. I think that to have politicians going over there and trying to I think you're just getting in the way of what's going on. They've got a job to do. Our job here in the United States is to support them. They should be able to defend themselves to the hilt and get the job done. And that's what I'll be doing. I know some other governors are thinking about going over, but that's not what I'm going to be doing, because I don't think that that's going to be productive for them to get the job done. So we're helping from here with the flights. We've sent a lot of donated supplies to Israel that we've flown over, and we're happy to be in the fight in that regard, but not for any theatrics.
2024 presidential candidate, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. Governor, thank you.
Thank you.